Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin Harrison, and I'm the news editor for IGB, and I'm going to be chairing today's webinar. So today's session is Emerging Stronger, Keeping Ahead of an Evolving Sportsbook Market. And this is brought to you by Kambi, who, as I'm sure you all know, are one of the early and most agile movers in the US sports betting market. And we've got a fantastic panel here today. So we have Kris, who's Kambi's Chief Technology Officer. We have Josh Pearl, Director of New Market Operations for Penn Interactive Ventures, a division of Penn National Gaming. And we have a representative, Brandt Iden, from the state of Michigan. So today our panel is going to discuss how the sports betting industry and general consumer behaviour are set to change to accommodate the post-pandemic reality. And the panel will also explore whether sportsbook suppliers and operators are ahead of the ongoing accelerated shift from retail to online, and how the industry can play an important role in growth and job creation. So to get started and to give the panel a chance to introduce themselves, I'm just going to fire a question at each of them, starting with you, Kris. So to kick us off, how, from Kambi's perspective, are things recovering as major US leagues return? I mean, figures from the state sports betting market suggested there was a level of substitution at the height of the pandemic. Of course, this is the table tennis question. So how have these sports fared now they've got competition from the majors?
Yep, thanks, Robin. It's great to be talking to you all today. It is an interesting question. I mean, we did work hard with the different regulators to find a wagering catalog that made sense at the start of this all. I mean, it was very weird day when March Madness shut down. We had just gone live in Greektown in Michigan, and also in Illinois with retail, and all of a sudden nothing. So, working hard to find options that gave, from an integrity perspective, made sense and passed them by the regulators. That was our first step. And then working with our partners every day, our partner success teams were sending out, this is what we know is available. This is what we know is a good option for you to be working to market towards your patrons. So that we did get strong engagement. A couple of interesting things we saw there talking about table tennis was it's an amazing experience from an in-play perspective. So we saw a big uptick in percentage of wagers that were in play, and saw that continue into tennis, in fact, as the tennis majors came back. Overall, I mean, as the NBA, MLB have come back, there's definitely been a decrease in interest in table tennis, but it's actually to a level we found surprising, still there. I mean, people are still enjoying the experience they got with that broadened horizon on the sporting options.
Thanks, Kris. And Josh, welcome. So with land-based properties reopening, even New York's as of yesterday, so how confident is Penn National of a rapid recovery at this point? And obviously this feels quite timely because you've got the live test of the Barstool Sportsbook coming up next week in Pennsylvania. So how did the shutdown affect those development projects? I mean, considering the stay-at-home orders, did that slow or accelerate these?
Yes, appreciate it again, Robin, the opportunity to join today. I'll take the first one, I guess, first. So just speaking on the retail front, most of our books, I would say it started reopening in July, and then finishing up with Greektown in early August. So we have all 16 of our sports books in 8 states that have reopened. I would wholeheartedly say that the numbers have been very encouraging since they've reopened. I'd say almost an uptick every single week, maybe with the exception of the week with the boycotts. I think, if you look at the states with online, New Jersey's numbers certainly were encouraging. Same with Pennsylvania. Colorado's numbers have been really good as well in the 3 months that they've been open. I guess touching on the online piece specific to our organization, I'd say challenging to say the least. But we've always had NFL season in our sights, so really in the crux of it, leading up from March, we have a lot of new team members that have joined, whether that be on product, engineering, compliance, operations, marketing. So a true testament of hard work, and it's been a true team effort, and certainly we're encouraged to offer our proprietary sportsbook next week. So true testament of hard work to our entire team. So I'd say, look, it's challenging. None of us have been in an office since March, so to do everything that's been done, it's been great to see.
Thank you very much, Josh. And Brandt, welcome. So for you, I mean, how have the past few months been? Because obviously you sponsored the bill to legalize betting and iGaming in Michigan. You had sports betting launch, and then about 3-4 days later, everything is shut down. So I mean, since the casinos in Michigan are now reopening, how do you feel the recovery is going?
Well, great to be with you, Robin, and Josh and Kris. Thanks for having me on the panel. I will say that, it was that experience was very interesting. So obviously, all the retail books in downtown Detroit opened that same day, and I was at MGM Casino. I was there. I placed the first bet there, and this was that afternoon when Michigan Gaming Control Board actually allowed us to go live. And then I took Michigan State to win the Big Ten tournament, and thought I had a pretty good bet. And it turned out to be a push, but then 24 hours later, the tournament was canceled, and it was there shortly after that it seemed like the world kind of came to a halt as it related to sports in general, and it was a very surreal feeling to have worked for almost 5 years, gone through a veto process, worked so diligently. Obviously, as everybody knows, I'm a bettor myself, very passionate about it, and then have that happen. It was difficult, and it's been a slow go. Obviously, Michigan was one of the longest to have our casinos closed in terms of our 3 commercial casinos in the city of Detroit. Our tribal casinos came online a little sooner. They've been open now for the better part of about 60 days. And some of them are at 100% occupancy in northern Michigan, or allowing 100% occupancy. In the city of Detroit, we're still at 15. That's 15% of full occupancy. So to answer your question, Robin, we're coming back. I'm confident that we're going to have a strong NFL season. I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but we're going to be up with mobile before the end of the year. But even with retail, I know that people are placing their bets. They're excited about tonight. They're excited about the NFL, and I'm confident that there's pent-up demand there, and that it's going to come back. It's taken us a little bit longer for our recovery in Michigan, and we'll probably continue to do so under governor's executive orders. But that be it the case, we're going to forge forward, and we're going to post good numbers for the end of the year. I'm confident of that, and 2021 is going to be great for the state of Michigan.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brandt. So now we move on to, I suppose, the first section of discussion, which is, what does the new normal mean for the longer term? So to kick off, we saw sportsbook handle and revenue begin to grow significantly once again, really from July onwards, as the NBA and MLB resumed. But obviously it's returned in a very different format, because it is similar to what we saw in Europe with the soccer leagues and competitions such as the Champions League, and that the format has changed significantly. So I was keen to get everyone's thoughts on how this new kind of format for the fixtures has affected customer activity.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. That's a very good to explore. Definitely, particularly for, you got bubble and non-bubble sports, MLB doing one way, NBA, NHL going another way. it's the schedule has given patrons a lot more exposure to different teams, different fixtures, and that definitely shows in the engagement. Particularly, say for live, you're not going to follow too many games at once, but if they're spread out in a different way than usual, there's a different opportunity for engagement. I think the return of the majors also, it's a big morale boost for people at home. And a sense of normalcy starting to return. So that's really driven people to be engaged with. They can't go to the stadiums, but to give them a different way of engaging with the sport. And that opportunity, we really see people picking it up.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I think Kris might have certainly mentioned it, but the calendar, right? I mean, it's really changed, especially when the bubbles first started. I mean, you had games starting at 11 in the morning and ending at 11 at night. So from a sports betting standpoint, that's as good as it gets, right? And I think potentially maybe the leagues start looking at that too. Maybe that becomes somewhat of a new norm. Who knows? But then with the playoffs, I don't think that you have the leagues avoiding scheduling on top of each other, right? I mean, last night I turned the TV on, you had an NBA playoff game and you had an NHL playoff game. So look, there's a lot of opportunities to bet every single day, and certainly starting with today, we've got 4 major sports playing on the same day. I certainly not in my lifetime that I can remember have I ever seen that. So.
Thanks, guys. And and obviously we've got the NFL returning tonight. And I was just keen to pick the panel's brains on the American Gaming Association's survey of sports bettors from yesterday, because it was quite interesting. It's been picked up in a few publications that while 33.2 million Americans intend to bet in the league, that's down from around 38 million in the same survey from 2019. So first of all, why do you think this is, and what can really be done to engage these players?
I think that, wagering sports betting is an entertainment product. Obviously, with the economic conditions that are existing, there's going to be less discretional spend. That said, I'm not sure. I mean, we'll have to see, but with the return of the majors, I think that may be a little bit understated. I looked at the survey details, and particularly they looked at different elements of wagering, from pools to on-premise to online, and there was a real shift from people wagering more informally in office pools and such to actually be looking to go on property. I don't know if it was 20% increase there, and also to place a bet online. So, I mean, that for me reflects what we saw. As to the overall numbers, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know they had sample pooling that they took both last year and this year. So I mean, who knows, in that sample pool size, what's going on. I mean, look, I think NFL, at least for me personally, and I know I've had some friends say the same thing. It's like, wow, NFL's here. I think a lot of us have been focused on the NBA playoffs or MLB or NHL playoffs, and some of those leagues we're not used to being available at this time of the year, and maybe NFL has subtly, kind of got pushed to the wayside. I know that they also mentioned some other topics, that some of the political issues, around football as being an indicator, as a potential, reason for that smaller amount or that decrease in percentage. But to Kris's point, I think the numbers will tell all. Tonight should be a great indicator, but certainly within a couple weeks, I think we'll tell if the gambler's back for NFL.
That's an interesting point that I think Kris and Josh both make, and I'll sort of tie those together a little bit. I think that, and I didn't see the full report. I only saw some of the bullet points, but I'd be curious to say, okay, obviously I think those bettors go somewhere. If they're not participating in the NFL, at the end of the day, what we do know about the industry is that these people are players and they are bettors. They just didn't all of a sudden decide to not bet anymore. So where have they gone? Have they moved to another sport? Have they moved to other offerings? What other offerings are out there and available to them, and what are they looking at doing? Did they all move to table tennis? I don't think so, but where did they go? So I would really want to see, okay, holistically, what does this look like? Where are these bettors? Where are they now playing if they're not participating in the NFL? I think secondarily, to Josh's point, really hit it right on the head. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine at dinner just the other night, and this is a guy who religiously participates in fantasy sports. And he looked at me and he said, Brandt, are we even going to have a football season? Are we going to have a complete season this year? I don't know that I'm interested in doing this. And so I think that there may be some apprehension on behalf of gamblers and bettors at the moment to say, okay, do you think the NFL is going to have a complete season? What does it look like? Maybe I'm a player that likes to just bet the playoffs. Maybe I'm not interested in doing that this year because I'm not sure what position COVID's going to take. So I do think that tonight's going to be very telling to see what kind of numbers we initially see, especially at our retail books here in Michigan. I'll be excited to see that number. And then lastly, and I think it's, and of course I would hit on this naturally, I think that there's a political element to it as well. There's no doubt that there's a lot of politics at play in a American presidential year that we're seeing right now. The president has made an example out of the NFL time and time again, and you do have people that may just not participate because of that. Now, I don't think that that's a major hit at the end of the day, because again, I come back to my point, which are bettors are bettors, and they're going to place their bets, and we welcome them to do so in Michigan.
That's an interesting point, and I'm going to come back to mitigation. But I just want to touch on a few other bits first. So first of all, like around the return of these sports, we've seen a lot of we've seen a lot of promotions. We've also seen a lot of new media partnerships and also other ones being activated, and then not least Penn's deal with Barstool Sports. So at a time when you've got a limited number of fans, if any, being allowed into stadium, do these deals take on extra significance, at least in the short term, in that more people are watching remotely, so that actually has greater reach?
Yeah, Robin, I think it's a great question. I don't know that we know the answer right now, right? And it's certainly an interesting time. There's certainly been no shortage of deals in the last few weeks, whether it be PointsBet with NBC, whether it be DraftKings with Wrigley. I know there's been a couple deals in Michigan. I think PointsBet has a deal with the Tigers. I know MGM, I think, just cut a deal with the Lions as well. So, look, I would assume that there's going to be a lot of proprietary efforts in those deals with the stadiums. Maybe that is expanded bet offerings. Maybe that's a certain promo if you sign up while you're in the stadium. I think time will tell. But I would say for the short term, certainly the deals with the media partners, I would think would make a bigger impact than the deals with the stadiums.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a massive deal flow. I think obviously we're one step removed from actually engaging and acquiring customers, but I mean, my observation is it depends on what you do with a media deal, how much you actually engage the consumer versus just advertising to them. So I would guess some deals will probably drive engagement much more, and others will just be an extension of existing advertising in that respect.
That's an interesting point, and these two gentlemen are certainly much more well-versed in the economics of that and how that works. I can just sort of make an anecdotal remark as it relates to players' experience. Admittedly, I'm not a Detroit Lions fan. People know that. I'm not giving that away, but that deal with MGM, for example, though, I do know folks that are probably, and again, anecdotally, if they're Lions fans, if they're religious about watching the Lions, they go to every game, perhaps they're season ticket holders. The marketing from MGM, if they choose to engage in sports betting, I think will have a direct impact on that, because if they're new to the industry, they want to go out, they want to place a $20 bet, they've never done it before, they think it's exciting, they're coming to the game anyway, they want to bet on their home team. I think what they're going to see is MGM plastered all over the walls of, and again, I only use the Lions as an example here, plastered all over the walls. They're immediately going to get on their mobile device when the opportunity is available to them, and they're going to place with MGM because they just don't know that other offerings are available. An experienced player is going to know that there are more offerings out there in the marketplace. They're going to shop lines. They're going to do other things. But I think short term, I think that is a way to sort of mine some new people that just want to get involved. The $20, $25, $50 player that wants to bet on their home team is going to go where they see the most marketing. I think the really interesting one out there is the PointsBet deal out in Colorado. I think that's really interesting. This is the first time we've seen, a major operator partner with an institution. The NCAA has been silent on the issue. Conversation for maybe later on in the panel, but I certainly think that that's going to be really interesting to see. We've seen a lot of these deals with professional teams. What happens when operators get involved and start playing in that NCAA arena? I think that that'll be really interesting, and certainly one again where if you're in there, you're an alumni of that particular institution. You're going to get on. You're going to go where you're marketed to.
Okay, thanks, guys. And just before we get on to mitigation, this is one for you, Kris. I suppose it's really about how the current format of games, whether bubble or non-bubble, or whether with fans or without fans. So, I mean, do these need to be factored into pricing? You know, does this sort of change trading strategies?
That's a fascinating question. I spoke to some of our trading team about this, and it varies quite a lot amongst different leagues. I mean, I think the summary they get, the teams are still, regardless of the situation, bringing their best. There have been some leagues where maybe the home team advantage has been seen to go away a lot, but overall, the home team advantage, strangely enough, seems to still exist, which you might not expect, but it could come down to familiarity with the field. It could come down to multiple things, but it has been something we're tracking, and at this point, it's built into the price. But it's something we had to keep a close eye on because this was unprecedented to have to understand. You know, how does that affect the models? How does it affect our starting prices, and how does that evolve?
Yeah, and now just bring it back to mitigation, because this is something that both you and you, Josh, and you, Brandt, touched upon, is the potential for disruption, whether that's COVID, whether that's politics, whether that's the protests, which I suppose is politics as well. So how do you mitigate this? You know, like I suppose from how do you go about kind of planning for these essentially kind of, I mean, maybe not so much as unforeseeable as they would have been in 2019, but still kind of potentially abrupt events that could kind of cancel or disrupt the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the product side, the easy answer is if casinos are forced to shut down to have an online product. But if U.S. mainstream sports are shut down again, to have a robust wagering catalog. I think you've seen a lot of states, as Kris mentioned in his first question, a lot of states looked at a lot of new international leagues, and I think patrons were used to betting on those. So I think there would be some familiarity, whether that be Korean baseball, or Italian basketball. I think having those, one, again, an online product available, but two, to have a expansive wagering catalog available would help mitigate some of that negative impact.
Yeah, I think Josh really hit it on the head, and I'll just echo that. I think it's about having a lot of opportunities for, again, the consumer. As I mentioned before, players, gamblers are going to gamble. That's what they're going to do, and they're going to go where the offerings are available to them, whether they're sports or otherwise. And that's why I think that, just to sort of parlay on that a little bit, I think that more states need to look at iGaming for that very reason, because you need to be able to have sports is very important. Sports gets a lot of attention. Sports is exciting. People are interested in sports. But if you want to look at revenue, if you want to look at sustainability, when we're talking about market disruptions and other things, it's about having all those offerings available, because there may not be sports going on, but guess what? You can still get online. You can still play blackjack. You can still play roulette, craps, whatever you're interested in, if you want to play, and that offering's available to you. If the state doesn't have that offering, it's going to be very difficult. And I think that we're going to see that as we get into 2021, and as states start to craft their budgets, they're going to take notice that their casinos have been closed for 3-6 months. In some cases, that's going to be major revenue impact. Right now, they're not feeling it. The federal government is propping a lot of these states up, and probably will continue to do so through the election, in my opinion. But after that, I'm going to tell you that when states go to craft their budgets in 2021, they're going to look back and they're going to say, wow, those casinos that we've had in our states bring in a tremendous amount of revenue, and when they were closed. We've now got, you know, in addition to already fiscal pressures on the state, we've now got to deal with the fact that these casinos were closed. And I know we're going to feel that in the city of Detroit. Those casinos being closed for 6 months, that's left a huge revenue hole in the city's budget. And guess where that falls? That falls right to the state to make up that difference. We've got to make sure that we've got a sustainable city there. So, you know, I recognize I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but at the same time, I do think that all these dominoes fall if you don't have a way to mitigate, as you've said, those potential revenue impacts.
I think just to wrap that up, looking at the last question as well, Josh made a great point about the expanded wagering catalog and Brandt to the revenue. One of the really interesting things is the postponements and also the impacts of COVID on specific teams that may not actually stop the game. And postponements, the biggest challenge is how do we make sure that that information is received? How do we make sure that the patron is made whole in those situations? I mean, that's the strength of Kambi, is we have a very strong sportsbook team who are on the pulse of that. A fascinating example is the recent Austin Peay Central Arkansas team. Austin Peay lost that game by 7 because all their long snappers were unavailable due to COVID restrictions. And you need to know that to make sure our prices are right in the market. And having a team that are on the ball there is really important. From that trading perspective.
Yeah, just to echo that, I know working really closely with the sportsbook control team, a prime example was when the MLB basically announced in a day or two that they would be moving to 7-inning doubleheaders. Well, on totals in baseball, oftentimes they need to go to the bottom half of the ninth in order to settle for a total. So that means updating the house rules, right? And that's in a day or two's time. That was a challenging one, because a lot of times house rules have to be approved by regulators, but I think all of the regulators that we worked with certainly understood the impact of that decision on that specific bet type. So yeah, again, it's been a lot of adapting to the times.
Thanks, guys. So now I want to move on to, I suppose, the middle section, which is how technology can support the new normal. So to kick this off, how can a kind of technology, I suppose, such as whether that's self-service terminals or kind of personal mobile devices, how can that kind of, first of all, enhance the sports betting experience and then help evolve it, taking the retail customer online? And so I was keen to get the panel's idea, what sort of adoption they're seeing, whether that's in the customers in your properties, Josh, or whether it's demand from clients, Kris, or whether it's through kind of more legislative developments, Brandt.
Yeah, I mean, a big one that comes to my mind in this space is certainly the omni-channel approach, right? One of the big advantages that we have, and obviously, the likes of MGM and Caesars, is the ability to tie online to retail, right? So whether that be through a unified loyalty program that you earn, whether you're on property or online, with the help of Kris and our robust engineering team here, we have our loyalty program tied to retail sports betting, and that will be part of our online product as well in the future. So I think another big one is maybe the ability to deposit and withdraw at the property, right? Let's say I need money and I have an online account to be able to I happen to be in the area of one of the casinos of an online product offering to be able to go in there and take money out of my account. So I think omni-channel is really where you're going to see a ton of development in this regard. So whether that again be converting the retail player to online or bringing that online player into the retail book. Certainly with our partners at Barstool, I certainly know that we have aspirations to bring a lot of the stoolies into our properties, and so we have our marketing team's figuring out the best approaches to that.
Echo Josh there. I mean, one of the big things we saw when we started this journey in 2018 post PASPA is we introduced the self-service terminals in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and the adoption of those has been well beyond our expectations. And I think now that reduced queues at clerks to begin with. Now that the uptake for that, the demand for that has grown. Another product that Kambi's introduced to our properties, or our partners' properties, is the BYOD, the bring your own device, which is sort of a not quite mobile on premise, but it introduces a patron to the idea of building a bet slip in their mobile, and allows them to just scan a QR code at the clerk and have that wager placed. And what we've done now actually is extend that to the SST again to make sure we can reduce lines, reduce touch points, and at the same time as giving the patron a mobile-like experience in the retail setting.
Yeah, I think both these gentlemen hit it on the head, and I'm always when I talk to other legislators around the country about putting together legislation, I'm always hesitant to tell them, don't be so rigid and specific in how you craft what you want the technology to do within the legislation, because trust me, this technology is going to change probably before that bill gets to your governor's desk for that individual to sign. And so you don't want to limit the market in any way by putting restraints in statute that doesn't allow these operators and these gentlemen to be able to give the best offerings possible to the consumer, because the minute that happens, the consumer goes right back to what they were doing before, which is their offshore bookie who's going to be able to provide those options to them. And you want these gentlemen to be able to operate in the regulated market space. And so legislatively, you need to make it, and this is what I tell all legislators, just make it a fair opportunity, whether you have, tribal operators, commercial operators, make it as fair as you can possibly make it. Don't put a tremendous amount of restraints on it. And for the love of Pete, do not make it in-person sign up. Illinois just got it so wrong with in-person sign up. It drives me nuts. And the only time they got it right was during COVID, when people could do it online. And so I tell my legislative friends, please, please, please reinforce that you have to make it easy, because the harder you make it for consumers to get on board, they're going to keep doing what they've done before. And we can't regulate this, and we can't provide the consumer protections, and you can't bring revenue into your state unless you do it the right way. And that's allowing these folks to operate in the free market the way that they need to.
Okay, and then what about payments? Because looking at the US, it kind of feels like it's jumped very quickly from swiping cards to contactless, which feels like quite a big leap. I mean, I was keen to get everyone's thoughts. Is this a just kind of like a rapid catch up, or is this an area where there's more room to innovate? And if so, are there inherent risks in this?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you can take a look at, the AGA's efforts around this, really in the last, 6 months with the modernization policies that they've been working on. That's already had an impact in Nevada. I know they've cited, talking with regulators in other states, and certainly, hearing good things from them about, innovating this space and, having it be, less cash based. So, look, I think with any new payment method, certainly there are, things that you're going to have to explore and make sure that, they're safe from a regulatory standpoint. So look, as long as those communications are happening, I think that, this space is certainly ripe for continued innovation.
Echo what Josh said. It's something we're actively exploring, looking at what the AGA is doing, looking at reducing touch points. From moving away from cash, obviously regulators have thought long and hard about the traditional cash basis of properties, and all the processes are built around cash. As if we move away from that, that's something that has to be carefully considered, but it's definitely worth doing, because it will give a better experience overall, as long as it can be done safely.
Yeah, and I would just again echo what these gentlemen said. I mean, I think that unfortunately I'm running out of time here, with this being my last legislative term and being done here at the end of the year. But I do think that would be the next step for Michigan, and I certainly hope that legislators after me pick up the ball and say the next step is probably cashless payments. I would have loved to have done it in the internet gaming bill. We were doing a lot as it was, and to throw that on top of it, I think that there were some concerns as it related to problem gaming Same concerns that are always there as we talk about internet gaming and so forth, but I think it was just a bit too far this time around. But I do think that that's probably a next step for Michigan. And as we look at some additional cleanup bills that will probably be forthcoming in 2021, 2022, as we unfold with our products here in Michigan and we take things to market and we recognize that some tweaks in the law may be required. As much as I'd like to think it's perfect legislation, I recognize that it's not. And I think that some cleanup will hopefully involve, and I'd certainly like to see that in Michigan, cashless, because that's really where we're going next. People do everything on their mobile devices, and they want to be able to make payments there just like they do at the grocery store.
Okay, and then loyalty programs. Now, it was quite interesting the other day that Boyd Gaming's Nevada sportsbook is branded Be Connected, as is its loyalty program. And obviously there are these massive, customer databases, which I'm sure Penn National has, and all the major land-based operators have built up over time. And I was keen to get everyone's thoughts on how much of a competitive advantage these programs offer and how these could be kind of integrated into, for example, like with an online betting and gaming account.
Yeah, I can't speak to it as much as I'm sure some of my counterparts in our marketing teams can. But look, as a consumer, I'd love to be able to earn consistently with a certain product or company that I buy things from, right? So if I'm playing online or if I'm playing at a casino, certainly I want to have that affiliation and that understanding that I'm earning from every aspect, right? So I personally, from my standpoint, think it's critically important, and I think it's definitely something that we again plan to have for our online piece and tie that to the retail component. So again, big thanks to Kris to helping that get across the finish line for our retail book. So we currently offer our My Choice both for our internet casino in Pennsylvania. And also for retail sports wagering at all of our properties.
Yeah, I mean, my choice with Penn was a key thing for enabling them to have a successful launch and engage their existing base of patrons. It's coming from the online, but as we did, obviously it's always with an account, so it's natural to see that would extend to the properties and into their existing systems. We developed some technology that makes it quite easy to integrate to those, and Penn jumped at that, and I think we launched with them first, and it was a key requirement to go live to make sure that could be done. I think the evolution of that is perhaps looking at how bonusing might work on property when you have that tie-up between the patron's loyalty account and the retail. We'll see how that evolves. Obviously, that regulatory demands around bonusing would have to be understood and met, but it's definitely a key area we're exploring.
I don't know that I can add much here other than to say a lot like Josh. From a player perspective, I love it. I love the tie-in. I love that. But I love to be marketed to. That's why I sign up for all the rewards programs. I want to know when I can get a free night stay. When am I going to be able to come in? When casinos are back up and running, fully operational again, and have those other entertainment offerings, we have to continue to remember we have those online players. We have the people that just like to bet. They're your sharp bettors that are always going to be on there, always placing bets on the game. And then you have this whole other entertainment component to the industry that you can't forget and you can't overlook, and say, look, people want to come in and be entertained at the casino. They want to come in for shows. They want to come in for entertainment. They want to be social with people again. And that may take us well into 2021, early 2022 before that happens in the era of the pandemic. But I will say that that's what people are looking for. And if they can build those rewards and loyalty points by playing online in the meantime and rack up 4 or 5 free nights stay, well, great. Get out to Vegas, enjoy it. That's the whole other part of the industry that we're trying to tie into, and it's people play for entertainment, and they want to participate. They want to go into the casinos. Internet's so important. You have to be online. You have to have the opportunities available to the consumers in the ever expanding marketplace. But at the same time, it all comes down to people wanting to be entertained, and they do want to go into the casino. At least I know I do. I'm looking forward to getting back in there.
Thanks, guys. And then just to round off this section, before we go into our third and final, I was just keen to find out if there's any other kind of technological advances or new technologies that the panel feels are going to be particularly important going forward. I mean, obviously we've got the 5G rollout coming. I mean, do you feel that's going to be a kind of a major milestone for the sports betting industry, and what else really?
I think ideas like 5G, we'll have to see what that brings. It all depends on how different operators, expand their product to use the extra bandwidth capabilities that brings. It's most likely to bring more live engagement, more streaming to the mobile. A number of operators now in the US have live streaming for the events, and that's really good to see. It's been a massive thing in Europe, and obviously there's many rights issues to figure out there. But with the media deals, you can imagine, I guess those are tying together in some way, and 5G is an enabler for that for sure. Looping back to the previous question, for the on-premise stuff, yeah, absolutely contactless payments. It's the way people behave now. Cash is not as big, and particularly post start of COVID, you don't want to handle so much cash, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add than what Kris hit on.
Okay, thanks, guys. And then we move on to our final section of the discussion, which is what all this means for the end user and the consumer. Now, just mindful of time, so do want to get to the audience questions. Let's start off just by circling back a bit to the media integrations, whether that's Barstool, NBC, CBS, Yahoo. I could go on. With these integrations, is this more a case of betting changing media coverage and the presentation of sports, rather than betting changing how fans consume sports?
Yeah, look, I would say there's again a lot that's you're going to be seen in this space, right? I mean, PointsBet and NBC just cut their deal. Certainly, NBC for the last Sunday night has been pushing their NBC predictor app. There's no shortage of free to play games. We certainly have a couple ourselves with Play Barstool, and also a free to play game with NASCAR as well. So look, I think you're probably going to see a lot more innovation in this space. You have Fox and Fox Bet, but I think again it's another one that in a year from now we're going to be able to speak a lot more on this. I will say just to piggyback on the free to play games, there's certainly a lot of efforts that are being pushed in states that aren't legalized yet, right? To try to get people familiar with certain companies, to build that player database when legislation is passed, but also to be able to teach them about gambling on sports as well. So again, I think another space that's you're gonna see a lot of evolution in the next year.
I think on the question of coverage versus consumption, I think it's a bit of both. You're seeing podcasts, segments on the major networks, obviously incorporating wagering into them now in ways they never would have before PASPA, before these deals were done. But also the opportunities that wagering brings, particularly I'll go back to the live because it is growing and it's a really engaging part of the product. When you combine that with media, you're going to have a good opportunity to continue to engage the consumer post the kickoff, and that's really important for driving revenue.
And I'll just sort of add that I think at the end of the day, this is all good for the consumer. What does it mean for the consumer? It means that this is all really headed in the right direction. And I just reiterate what I said previously. If you're in the government affairs realm, if you're working on legislation and you're talking to legislators, really remind them that they have to make sure that they don't put so many parameters on the legislation that it makes it difficult for operators to do what they do best, which is engage the customer and the consumer. Because so much of this is about, and I started with this premise when I started down this path in Michigan, and I even end with it today. Revenue is very important, but it really is about consumer protection. This is a consumer protection issue. This is people who play. We know they play. We know that these offerings are available. They do it offshore. They don't get paid in some instances. Their personal information gets hacked because it's offshore somewhere, or where they get a check from a Chinese bank that they can't cash. I mean, every story you can imagine happens to people who play offshore. And if you really want to protect people in your state, you really want to provide those consumer protections, then it's really crafting legislation that allows these folks, Josh and Kris and their companies, to do what they do best, which is engage consumers. And so I'm excited about where the industry's headed. I think that 2021 is going to be a big year across the country for sports betting, with the state legislatures being, on short session this year because of elections, and then with COVID epidemic happening as well. I think really where we end is 2021 will be busy in state capitals across the country, and because of that, I think sports betting will be at the front. A lot of those discussions are already happening. States grappling for revenue, as I talked about earlier. These conversations are going to come up, and as you have those conversations, remind legislators, look, let the operators do what they do best, let the free market do what it does best, and provide those consumer protections. And we're going to have a great 2021, and I think that it's going to be great for consumers really at the end of the day, Robin.
Fantastic. That feels like a nice, positive message to end the discussion on. So thank you very much for your thoughts. But I was keen to get onto the questions, because we've had a few excellent questions come through already. So let me just have a look at this. So we've had one listener ask. They've asked, the college football season looks to be heavily disrupted with the Big Ten season cancelled. Will all lost revenue from this simply be made up for in betting in other college conferences in the NFL, or will the disruption be greater for the betting industry?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We certainly have a couple properties that are definitely in Big Ten territory. So I don't know that we can answer that question yet. I think we're going to have to wait and see. But certainly you have a lot of, I would say in the first year that we've had our retail books with, open with Kambi, one of the biggest wows to me has been, just how much local dollars come in on local teams and the affiliation there. So it's a really good question. I don't know that we know the answer to it. I think the hope is that, those dollars, as Representative Iden mentioned, gamblers are gamblers. I think a lot of those types of players are going to find other conferences or, bet on NFL. But, certainly there's definitely going to be a loss of, more of the casual fan who's on their way to, watch, one of those teams play and stops by the casino that they were doing last year. So, I don't know that we know the answer in my personal opinion.
Time will tell comes up a few times here. It remains true here, though. It's hard to say. We have NFL coming tonight. It's going to be a great night, and we're expecting. If we compare what just benchmarking where we expect to be, we expect a lot more activity for this first night than we did last year. Is that coming from people who didn't get to bet in their college football team? It's hard to say. There's, as Josh said, the casual fan, that they may not be engaged in the pro leagues. They may not find it as interesting. They only care about their team, and we'll lose that, but it will be back, right? Sport is going to continue. Sport will be back, and we look forward to seeing college football next year.
Yeah, I think Kris is exactly right, and I think Josh hit it on the head as well. Sure, I think we're going to lose some additional dollars that will be those casual gamblers, right? The person that's going to throw $50 on a University of Michigan versus Ohio State game simply because they're an alumni of one of those universities. And that's disappointing. I'm disappointed in, and I do want to put this on record, I'm disappointed in the Big Ten. I'm disappointed in the decision that they've made. I know that my speaker here recently penned a letter with speakers from other Big Ten states and Senate majority leaders to encourage the Big Ten to get back in the game, literally. And I know that the commissioner's looking at that. The commissioner's having conversations with the White House. It's disappointing. If the SEC can play, then we should be able to play here in Michigan as well. We should be able to do it safely. And I guess for me, I'm going to just become an SEC fan.
Thanks, guys. And next up, funnily enough, we have another AGA report questions. This is a different report. And this actually goes into something affecting, I suppose, kind of what it all means for the consumer. So this report from a few months ago, the questioner asks, highlighted how that many bettors lack knowledge of regulated versus unregulated offerings. How do you ensure both new customers and existing offshore bettors place their bets within the regulated market?
Well, I think a lot of
tough question.
look, a lot of it comes through media partners. Look, I grew up in Missouri. I've gone home the last few years, and I still hear on ESPN affiliates, my bookie being broadcasted. So I think it starts with means like that, right? We can't have trusted sources pushing untrusted books, right? And offshore books. So I think that's a big effort that needs to be had. I think we as operators in our marketing efforts need to emphasize that this is legal, regulated, that there are no concerns. But yeah, look, there's a lot of brand awareness that needs to be had. I don't think that that's going to happen overnight. Certainly the AGA is leading a lot of great initiatives around that. But lots to still do.
As Brandt said earlier, I mean, this is all about consumer protection from the regulated point of view. And to Josh's point, yeah, we have to make sure it's the regulated books, those who are going to the effort of doing it the right way, are the ones that the media partners are talking about, whether they have a partnership or not, because that will drive mindset for sure.
Yeah, these two gentlemen hit it right out of the park. I can't tell you. I think I picked up probably the Detroit News or to the Free Press on Sundays during NFL week, and I can't tell you how many times they referenced the line on Bovada. It's the most ridiculous. It infuriates me to the point where I've called the editor a couple times of the sports division. I go, why are we running the? Well, those are the numbers that are out there. No, there's plenty of other numbers you can find out there. Stop telling consumers that Bovada is actually a place where they can bet. Sure, you can do that, but that's not when it comes to consumer protection, as Kris said. What we're trying to do here, it really takes a concerted effort on behalf of the entire industry to make sure that we're directing consumers to the right place. The AGA is doing a great job. Josh is absolutely right, but it takes that concerted effort amongst everybody. And until you can start getting major papers in the city of Detroit to stop publishing offshore lines, we've got a lot of work to do still. And we're going to get there. We are going to get there, but we've got a lot of work to do still.
Okay, thanks, guys. And then to finish off, we have a question on integrity. So the questioner asked the issues creating trading problems that I think you referred to earlier, Kris, described let me rephrase that. The issues around trading that you described, Kris, likely present a huge integrity issue too. How do you protect integrity now that COVID offers a whole new range of inside information people may use to bet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, one of Kambi's strengths is we have a sportsbook control team, and this is 24/7 their job. Obviously there's an information flow we're receiving from official data sources, from Twitter, from wherever the information comes from. But then we also have the wagers we're seeing, and we're continually looking for patterns that don't make sense. We have obligations in all the regulated jurisdictions to make sure we report that. Take some of the jurisdictions that came online during COVID, particularly Colorado. They had a real focus on integrity. And I mean, that's back to the previous question. That's one of the major issues with when we're doing it regularly. We're trying to do it the right way in that respect. We're taking care of integrity. We're reporting it. We're talking to the regulator. That information shared with other operators, so we can quickly get to the bottom of if something weird is happening. We can't control how the information flows, but we can look to observe the impacts of that information or unexpected impacts and try and work backwards to see if there's something that we don't know that everyone does need to know.
Thanks. Josh, Brandt, do you have anything to add on the integrity issue?
No, look, I would echo pretty much everything that Kris said. It's a very specified, skill set, and like Kris mentioned, I work very closely with Kambi sportsbook control team. We often have these discussions with regulators, and I think they're super knowledgeable, and I've learned a lot from them in the process.
Okay, right, we have 3 minutes left, so I suppose that's time to wrap things up. So first of all, I'd like to give a massive thanks to each of you, Kris, Josh and Brandt. It's been really interesting getting your impressions and discussing this with you, so really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and Robin, if I may, real quickly, just as as an operator, want to personally thank Representative Iden for all of his efforts in Michigan to bring internet gaming and sports wagering to the state. Certainly, we hope that moves forward, momentum in other states. But personally, want to thank you, from our organization.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, I just hope that we can impress upon other legislators across the country to keep heading in the right direction, keep those consumer protections up. And as I said, I think, Robin, I think 2021 is going to be a great year for the industry, and really looking forward to it, and really exciting things coming out of Michigan, hopefully with us going online by the end of the year. So just appreciate the opportunity to join you gentlemen as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'd like to echo that, because I think, Brandt, the first time we talked, it was early 2019, so just after the 2018 veto, when the bills you're preparing them to be to resubmit, and then later on when it was looking like the governor was going to veto them again. So it's good to kind of to do this kind of when it's finally launched and in the process of launching further.
Absolutely. I'm not sure which was a worse day, the day that Governor Snyder vetoed my legislation or the day that sports ended in the country. I can't figure it out. Both a bad day.
We're back. We're back.
We're back. That's right.
Yep. And we're back. NFL tonight. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's all fingers crossed. It's all on the up from here, and especially with new states coming online. It feels like this hopefully is a start of something positive. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time and for this great discussion. I'd also like to thank Kambi for making this possible, and for Katie Leslie for handling all the tech stuff from Clarion's side. It's just to finish off a few housekeeping notes. So today's webinar has been recorded, so it's going to be available on the IGB website to listen on demand and to share with colleagues. And that's everything. That's everything from us today. So once again, thank you very much for the panel, and we hope to speak. We hope to. Well, I was about to say see, but it's quite difficult to see people in webinars. So we hope to welcome all our listeners back for the next session, which I think is 15th of September and is titled Sharing and Shared Experiences, Our Community-Oriented Products and Features, the Emerging Trend for Our Industry. So that's all from us today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Robin, Brandt, Josh.
Thanks, Kris. Thank you.